Like I said, since I have 25 minutes, it's hard to talk about him. He had such a tremendous life and a tremendous impact on each one of us. 5 years ago on Gaura Purnima, I was in Bulgaria, and the devotees there asked me to give their class on Gaura Purnima. And I was hesitant because I don't speak Bulgarian, and it's difficult to keep everyone's attention while translation's going on. And to be honest, 5 years ago, I hadn't studied Chaitanya Leela very much. I knew of Chaitanya Leela, of course, but I hadn't studied Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya Mangala like that. I read some of it, but I didn't really study it. And so I was reluctant to talk about Lord Chaitanya. But I have this policy where if someone asks me to speak, I will do it. I can't refuse it. Because one time I refused it, I thought it was a little inconvenient, and I regretted it ever since. So now anytime someone asks me if it's possible, I speak. So I decided, okay, I'm in Bulgaria, and they asked me to speak, so that's what I'm going to do. And so what I ended up speaking on there was the connection that Lord Chaitanya has to all of us. So first I started glorifying some of the many wonderful devotees of Bulgaria. I met most of them in Mayapur. I serve at the Mayapur Gurukul, and there are some Bulgarian devotees that also do service there. And so I met a lot of them there, and then I made a couple other trips to Bulgaria and met a lot of the other devotees there. They're really enthusiastic in Bulgaria. And so it wasn't hard for me to come up with these wonderful stories about these fantastic devotees. And I explained that the reason that those devotees and I are all connected is because of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And one might say, well, actually, the immediate reason is Srila Prabhupada, because Srila Prabhupada came to the West and he preached Krishna consciousness to all of us. So there's the immediate cause right there. And of course, then there's the ultimate cause, Sri Krishna. He's in charge of everything. He controls everything. So ultimately, Krishna is the reason why we were all connected, right? So why would I pick this Lord Chaitanya, who's seemingly in the middle between the immediate cause and the ultimate cause? And that's a valid question, of course. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did something very unique, very necessary for this age of Kali. In different ages or different times, there are different means by which one can attain perfection, to attain the love of God. And in this particular age, it's the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, chanting of God's names. And it was Lord Chaitanya who gave that. Prior to that, it was not very well known. But Lord Chaitanya gave this opportunity to everyone. He's known as the Mahavadanyaya Avatar, the most merciful incarnation of the Lord. And so first I want to talk a little bit about what the mantra means. So we saw the mantra up on the TV there, and we were chanting it for quite a bit. And one might ask, well, what does that even mean, this mantra? And why do we chant it so much? The mantra means, it's actually a prayer. We're calling out to God, to Krishna, to please engage us in his devotional service. A long translation of it is, the mood of it anyway, is that, "Oh dear Lord, for so long I have been living my life thinking that I'm in control of it. But now I understand that you are in control. So please help me see that and engage me in your devotional service." Earlier, His Grace Vishnu Gada Prabhu was talking about the Sri Chaitanya Shikshastakam, the 8 verses that Lord Chaitanya left us. And the first one, Chaito Darpana Marjanam, talks about how the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra cleanses the mirror of the heart. And what that means is, so we live inside of the heart, and there's like this, we'll call it a window to the outside world, to reality. And our windows currently have a whole lot of muck on them, so we can't see things very clearly. We can maybe perceive some different shapes and maybe some light. We can't really see, we can't get a really close look at what's actually going on in reality. And so the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it cleans that window and it helps us see things as they are. Now, this works for everybody, of course. You chant this mantra, then you're going to start seeing things more and more clearly as they are. But what that means for us is that when things become clear, when we chant the mantra and things start becoming clear, it means that we have to do something about it. Now that we've seen life clearly, we have to make decisions to adjust our lifestyles. It's not that just that while chanting Hare Krishna, our life automatically becomes perfect. We are jivas, we have free will, so chanting Hare Krishna gives us the opportunity to become perfect. But we actually have to act on the clarity that the Maha Mantra gives us. So that's the meaning and the reason why we chant the Maha Mantra. Now, Lord Chaitanya, his entire life was devoted to spreading the glories of the holy name, chanting Hare Krishna. And he illustrated that from his very birth, this anniversary that we're celebrating right now. Lord Chaitanya actually stayed in the womb for 13 lunar months, like a year. Now, normally, a child stays in the womb for 9 months, and that's that, right? Lord Chaitanya, he was a little stubborn, and he stayed in the womb because he was waiting for a perfect time to enter this world. And he thought, what would be the perfect time to enter this world? And as we know today, Purnima means full moon. The particular year that Lord Chaitanya came, there was actually a lunar eclipse that year. And generally, eclipses are considered inauspicious, not very good. The omen, it's bad. In fact, it's so bad that, especially in India, the people, when there's an eclipse, they'll go into the Ganges River with all of their clothes on because, everything's going to be contaminated because of this eclipse, the clothes, the body, everything. So they go in and they just start chanting names of God, Hare, Hare, Hare Krishna, like that. And so on that seemingly inauspicious day, all of the Hindus were there in the river with all their clothes on, chanting Hare Krishna, in order to ward off the bad omens from the lunar eclipse. Now, of course, there are also a lot of Muslims in India, and they too were standing there on the banks of the Ganges, and some people went in, and they were also chanting Krishna's name. Some of them were mocking, they were like, what are these, Hare, Hare, Krishna, Krishna, like this. And some of them were just, chanting because they appreciated the Lord's names. And so during that time, during that eclipse, when everybody was in the sacred Ganges River and chanting the names of God, then Lord Chaitanya thought, okay, this is the perfect moment for me to enter this world. Now, like I said, generally, lunar eclipses are inauspicious. But Lord Chaitanya, throughout his life, demonstrated through practical example that even the most unfortunate situations can be made fortunate simply by chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Even the most wretched of souls can become purified by chanting Hare Krishna. He showed this throughout his life from the very beginning. So even the very auspicious event became this extremely beneficial opportunity for everyone. And so that's how Lord Chaitanya appeared. Then he continued on while he was very young. And of course, even here in America, when a child is born, people go in to visit the new baby. In India, it was more so. They lived in a village, and so anytime there was a new baby, everyone would come and they'd bring presents, and they'd want to see the baby and hold it like that. And so what Lord Chaitanya would do when he was a baby is he would cry unless the local ladies would chant Hari Hari. So they would chant Hari 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 Hari. And when they stopped, he'd start crying. And the only way to make him stop was to chant Hari 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 Hari. And so the village ladies at that point, they gave him the nickname Gaura Hari, because his body was golden and he loved Hari, Gaura Hari. As Vishnugada Prabhu also mentioned, when Lord Chaitanya was teaching grammar, he did so only referring to Krishna's names. So there's different aspects of grammar, the root words, and then there's suffixes and affixes, and each of them, Lord Chaitanya would relate to a different name of Krishna or a different pastime of Krishna, and that's how he would teach his students grammar. Then, of course, I'm sure most of you know the example of Jai and Vijay, the most sinful people around. It's said that the Yamadutas, who they record all your impious activities, all the bad stuff you do, they said that when they're trying to document all the bad things they did, they actually couldn't keep up with it. They couldn't write that fast. And there was a team of people on these guys. So if you think you're sinful, and I know I'm very sinful, these guys, they put us all to shame, the most sinful. And there's a pastime where not only were they sinful, they became offensive. You can go ahead and rip that off. Sorry. That's okay. They became offensive. They actually blasphemed the Lord, and they threw a pot at Lord Nityananda, struck him in the head, causing him to bleed. Highly offensive, highly sinful. But because they accepted the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and they accepted Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, and they repented, they became great devotees. And there's even a bathing ghat at the Ganges River, where people go still now to this day, that they established. And what they would do is when they were around, when the people would come and bathe there, they would chant Hare Krishna to them. That was their service that they ended up doing. So even the most sinful can become purified by chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So therefore, this is a very special link that we have. Like I said, our immediate link, Srila Prabhupada here, the ultimate link, Sri Krishna. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the one who gave us the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. He broke open the storehouse of love of Godhead, and he distributed freely to everyone, regardless of caste, creed, sex, regardless of birth, regardless of species even. Lord Chaitanya has been known to liberate animals. They would chant Hare Krishna and they would become liberated. Does anyone know of an example of an animal that Lord Chaitanya liberated? Anyone? Don't be shy. Elephant? Where was that? Where? Dog? I heard dog. Who said dog? That was Mikey. Whose dog was that? Well, actually, it wasn't anyway. It was a stray dog, but he was following Shivananda Sen. And the Jarikanda forest, tigers, there were deer, right? Monkeys, right? Anyone that would accept this and chant would become purified. Now, as I mentioned earlier, when we chant Hare Krishna, it has this clarifying effect on our lives. It makes things clear. We can see things as they are. But then it's up to us to do something about that clarity. So, one example that I want to give to you. A few years back, I was in Jagannath Puri, and thank you, Srila Prabhu, for your enthusiasm. Jagannath Puri Ki Jai. And I was doing a small service for a pilgrimage tour. Basically, my service was to clean up the flower petals after the morning program. And they were marigold petals. They were mostly orange and yellow. And the cloth that was on top of the table that I was cleaning them off of was also orange and yellow. So after the morning program, I went and I cleaned everything off, and I thought I did a pretty thorough job. I, got this big pile of petals, and I looked, and okay, I got them all. And so I took them and I put them where they needed to go, and then I started chanting my japa. And I was walking back and forth in this room, as we generally tend to do when we're chanting. And then I noticed, as I was walking back and forth, when I got near the table, I noticed, oh geez, I missed a petal there. Oh, there's another one right there too. Now, what I could have done at that point was think, yeah, well, next time I'll try harder. Or, well, it's only a couple and who's gonna see them? Like that. We think like this when we see something. But I understood, okay, well, I'm chanting and I'm asking Krishna to engage me in his service. And the effect of chanting is that it cleanses the mirror to which we view life, to reality. And I was thinking, okay, well, I'm asking Krishna for service, and he's actually showing me the service, so what am I supposed to do? I have to clean up these flowers, right? That's what I'm meant to do. And so this is a really simple example, but it's something that we can apply in our lives every day. Because as we chant Hare Krishna, things become clear in our lives. Different activities that we should or should not do, things that we should eat, the mentalities we have when we do different things, people that we hang out with. Everything that we do is important. There's nothing in our lives that's just completely trivial. We're here in this material world because we wanted to know what it was like to be the center, to be in control. And our experience that we have is that, I only know what I see and hear and smell and touch, and I perceive through these senses. So it's natural that I kind of think the world revolves around me, because I don't know what Mr. is thinking. He's looking at me, but maybe he's saying, that's a really nice kurta. Where did he get that made? I don't know. Maybe he's saying, this guy should just shut up. I don't have any experience of what any of you are thinking. And each of us has this same thing. We only experience what we are doing. And we don't necessarily realize that the things that we do have a huge impact on our ultimate goal of life. So here we all are at this Hare Krishna temple on an auspicious occasion. So clearly, at some point, we've thought that we have to do something with our lives to cultivate our spirituality. At least we're interested in that. We've assigned some sort of value to spiritual life, right? We thought, this is something that I want to do. This is something that's important to me, and I want to somehow cultivate it, right? And that's what's called a value. We have a value, and we assigned it to that. And each of us have varying degrees of value for different things, for hearing, for chanting, for reading, for associating with devotees, like that. We assign different values to them. Maybe one person thinks kirtan is more important, and one person thinks devotee association is more important. Another thinks studying the shastra is more important, like that. So in this way, we have this sort of assessed values that we've put on what our ideal life is like. But then there's another side of value, and that's how we spend our time and energy. So if we look at how we spend our time and energy on a daily basis, we can see that although we have an ideal value system that we want to become spiritually more enlightened, we also have this other value system that in our practical lives, that we spend a lot of time doing things that aren't necessarily centered on spiritual progress. we justify them because, we need to do things. We need to eat, we need to sleep, we need to work, we need to maintain our bodies and our families. We need to do so many things. And then spirituality is sort of on the back burner for most of us. I mean, if you ask us, sure, it's at the forefront of our priority list. That's really what we need, that's what we want to do. But when we assess how much time, energy we spend on a daily basis on direct spiritual cultivation, then it's sort of a wake-up call, and we understand, okay, I spend a lot of time doing things that aren't really focused on my spiritual progress. Luckily, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us this perfect formula of how to get out of this conundrum, is that we just chant Hare Krishna whenever we can. And when we do that, Krishna will show us which things are actually detrimental to our spiritual life and which things are helpful. And when we see that, when we notice it, we actually have to do something about it. We have to say, okay, I understand. I've been attached to this particular thing for a very long time, and now I know that it's actually not helping in my Krishna consciousness. So I have to do something about it. I have to consciously make the decision that since this is not helping in my Krishna consciousness, I'm going to put that aside. And when we do that, that's when we make true spiritual advancement. Krishna created us in such a way, he gave us all free will. The reason why he gave us free will is that the nature of love is that it has to be voluntary, otherwise there's nothing really to taste, there's nothing to relish. If it's the only option, only to love, it's not really a dynamic thing, right? There has to be the option to not love. There has to be a choice. Because if you don't have a choice, if you're just hanging out with me because there's no choice, that's not really a relationship. That's just a situation, right? But when you make that choice, then that's actually where love begins. So that's why we all have free will, because otherwise love can't be experienced. And we all want to experience this love, but we can't do it unless we start making the right decisions. I have exactly 1 minute and 30 seconds left, and I'm going to ask if there's any questions, even though who can answer a question in 1 minute and 30 seconds? Are there any questions? Of course not, because everything I said made perfect sense, and we're all going to start really focusing on what we can do in our lives to promote positive spiritual growth. Well, isn't that fantastic? Okay, yes, Trilochan Prabhu has a question or a statement.
Are we by nature in love with him and is covered now?
That's a terrific question. He said, just for those who haven't heard, he said, since we are part and parcel of Krishna, are we actually in love with him, but we've somehow become covered? Right? Is that what you said? That's a great question. Thank you for that. As part and parcel of Krishna, we are spirit. That's what we're made of. And spirit is eternal, it's full of bliss, and it's full of knowledge. That's the eternal nature of the soul. Due to free will, we have decided to take a covering. Now, I don't usually like to say we're covered, because covered sounds like someone else did it to us, right? Like, oh, I'm covered. It's like, someone did that. Like, when a person's in jail, they say, yeah, someone threw me in here. The judge didn't like me or something like that, right? And that's the attitude we like to have, that we're actually innocent, but somehow someone's restricting us. What can we do? I can't do anything about it, right? So I don't like to use the word covered. We are covered, but we are self-imposed covered. We have actually decided to take this covering. And when we own up to that, when we realize that it's actually it was our own doing, then we can start uncovering, right? Because it's not that, one day someone, whoever threw this covering on us is, going to become merciful to us and just take it off. No, it's what we have to work on. And that's, as I said, the Cheto Darpana Marjanam, there's multiple layers of grease and funk and dust and just like grime on top of this mirror. And we put it all there. And as we chant, then Krishna helps out a little. He starts, it's really a lot, but he starts showing us the clarity. And then we have to act on it. We have to do something about it. But it's all our own doing, the covering. I hope does that answer your question? John? Is there anything else before the drama? Is the drama ready? Or shall I speak longer? I'm going to speak longer because it seems that the drama is not quite ready. Which is fine because I have a lot more to say. So, there is a book by Srila Prabhupada. It's called Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. It is roughly a summary of Chaitanya Charitamrita, but it focuses on 5 conversations. So I said that Lord Chaitanya is the Mahavadanyaya avatar, the most merciful incarnation. And these 5 conversations illustrate that, it proves that. So the first conversation we'll talk about, and actually you're going to learn a little bit about during the drama that's coming up next, is Prakashananda Saraswati. He's a Mayavad sannyasi, and he had a lot of followers in Kashi, Benares, Varanasi, however you want to name the town. It's a very famous scholastic town where Mayavad philosophy means that these people are under the impression that they're actually God, right? We are God. We just have to come to our perfection and re-become God because somehow we forgot that I don't know what, actually their philosophy makes no sense whatsoever, but they believe it very vehemently. After the conversation with Prakashananda Saraswati, there's a conversation with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was also originally a Mayavadi, and when he met Lord Chaitanya, he understood that Lord Chaitanya was a very advanced soul just by seeing his behavior when he visited the Jagannath temple in Puri. But he was still tied up in material consciousness. So he saw Lord Chaitanya, he saw that he was very young, he was only 24 years old at the time. And he was asking his brother-in-law, who was an associate of Lord Chaitanya, he said, okay, who is this? What's his name? Who did he take initiation from? What's his deal? Let me know. And so when he found out who his guru was, his sannyas guru, he said, okay, well that's like a third-class sannyasi. Let's try to bring him up to the first-class standard. And he thought, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to instruct him, and I'm going to teach him Vedanta properly so that he can maintain his sannyas ashram. So he's looking at Lord Chaitanya materially. Although he understood his spiritual potency, he also measured him in a very materialistic way. And so he wanted to actually help Lord Chaitanya, who's absolutely perfect. So Lord Chaitanya actually humored him because Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he at least understood something about spirituality, unlike the Mayavadi sannyasis of Benares. And so he humored him, and he listened to him speak on Vedanta Sutra for 7 days straight. And Lord Chaitanya didn't say a word, he didn't ask a question, he didn't make any faces that made Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya think that he was actually listening or not. And so after 7 days, on the 8th morning, he said, look, I don't know if you're understanding any word I'm saying. I've been talking to you for 7 days straight, and you're staring at me blankly, and you haven't asked any questions, you haven't said if you agree or not. Do you even understand Vedanta? And Lord Chaitanya, he looked at him and he said, oh yeah, I understand Vedanta perfectly, but whatever you're talking about makes no sense whatsoever, right? It's not a problem with Vedanta. I got that. You're talking nonsense, man. And so Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was quite humbled, and he said, well, why don't you tell me? And so Lord Chaitanya did. He started explaining what Vedanta is all about. Basically, what Lord Chaitanya said was that every Vedic aphorism talks about the Supreme Lord, and there are three aspects of every single Vedic aphorism. There's Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayoja. Sambandha means knowledge of the relationship between the spirit soul and the Supreme Soul, between us and God. That's the knowledge, Sambandha. Then there's the Abhideya. Abhideya means like a process, what we do about that knowledge, how we apply that knowledge, so the application of that knowledge. So Sambandha means we understand the difference between us and God and what our relationship is, and then what do you do about it? So we know it, and then we do something about it. We adjust our lives where we no longer think we're God, making all of our decisions based on our own whims or personal desires. We start making our decisions based on Krishna's desires, like that, on God's will. We live our life not for ourselves, but for God. And then Prayojana, the third aspect of every Vedic aphorism. That's Sambandha, Abhideya, and then Prayojana. Prayojana means the ultimate goal. So you don't perform an action unless you have a goal. That's just the nature of things. So the ultimate goal is to re-enter our eternal loving relationship with the Supreme Lord, to go back to Him, back home, back to Godhead. And if anyone tries to give any explanation about the Vedanta that doesn't follow these three things, what the relationship is, how to apply the knowledge of that relationship, and how to attain that eternal goal, the ultimate goal. If anyone tries to explain Vedanta in any other way besides this way, then he's talking nonsense. He's making stuff up. You know, the original compiler of Vedanta, Srila Vedavyas, he gave a commentary of Vedanta Sutra in the Bhagavat Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's what the Srimad Bhagavatam talks about. Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. And it looks like the play is ready. Is the play ready? The drama? Jai. So, I'm just going to test you guys. What does Sambandha mean? Relationship. Abhideya. Application. Prayojana. Ultimate goal. Jai. Okay. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Thank you very much.